What if I told you that the most recited prayer in Western civilization, the prayer that has structured the consciousness of billions of souls over 2 millennia, is not a plea designed for humility, but an encrypted vibrational code that was deliberately manipulated word for word to strip us of the inherent authority to co-create our own abundance? The truth, my friends, is not that it has been destroyed, but rather that it has remained guarded, buried beneath veils woven from the silk of submission and programmed fear. This is not a chance encounter. It is the convergence of a millennia-long quest with a revelation that detonates the very structure of the material reality you know. What is about to be revealed here is the master key to unlocking the perpetual flow of divine providence. Knowledge so fundamental and potent that its suppression has been the cornerstone of the structural control of the masses. We have been taught to beg for crumbs at the banquet of the universe, to wait for charity when, by right of conscience and cosmic inheritance, we are the hosts and heirs of the whole. The enlightenment you seek does not reside in dogmas of stone or empty rituals, but in the recovery of the original vibration of the spoken word, the one that transforms lack into certainty and supplication into an inescapable decree. This journey is an expedition to the prescribed texts of antiquity, to the whispers of Gnostic sages and the codices that power structures strove to purge from known history, simply because they contained the formula for the economic and spiritual emancipation of the individual. If you are tired of living under the tyranny of scarcity and of believing that prosperity is a privilege for a select few, then you have reached the threshold of the truth that will change the frequency of your existence from this moment forward. Prepare to reclaim the power that was stolen from you through sacred syntax. It's time to stop begging and start decreeing. But before we penetrate this vault of ancient knowledge and reveal the forbidden version of prayer, it is essential that you seal your intention with the universe. This is not merely an act of passively consuming information, it is an energetic exchange that demands the active participation of your will. Therefore, I decree that you place your seal of light, the like, to affirm that you are ready to receive and hold this truth without fear. I decree that you open the channel of connection, subscribe, so that the inexhaustible source of ancient wisdom does not stop on its journey to you. And crucially, you must decree your search with conviction and rigor in the comments. Right now, with all the strength of your spirit, I seek the truth. Only those who seal their intention and affirm their commitment will be able to assimilate the magnitude of what we are about to share. The door is open. You only have to choose to cross it. The Forbidden Lord's Prayer, the vibrational key to secret abundance. The first mystery we must unravel, the backbone of this revelatory journey, centers on the prayer we have called the Forbidden Lord's Prayer. We are not talking about a simple typo or a minor dialectical difference. We are addressing the programmed alteration of a quantum manifestation mantra that was reconfigured as it passed from Aramaic tablets to Greek transcriptions and finally to vernacular Latin, transforming its essence from a powerful decree of co-creation into a pathetic plea for survival. The fundamental betrayal lay in changing the locus of power, from being an affirmation of the divinity inherent in the individual, capable of manifesting reality through the word, it became a desperate plea directed at an external, potentially punitive deity that administers resources capriciously. Power structures, both political and religious, have always understood that the key to mass servitude is not brute force, but the subtle control of the collective psyche. If people believe that creation is abundant, infinite, and that their access to it is direct and unconditional, then they become ungovernable, self-sufficient, and, most dangerously for the status quo, free from the need for intermediaries. The version we know, the one that teaches us to ask only for our daily bread, embodies a mindset of scarcity and limitation, ensuring that the collective consciousness never aspires to the full inheritance, but rather settles for basic survival, perpetuating a cycle of dependency and guilt that benefits only those who position themselves as the exclusive distributors of grace and wealth. To grasp the depth of this semantic sabotage, it is imperative to delve into the echoes of forbidden texts, those Gnostic fragments and the Dead Sea Scrolls that challenged the centralized narrative of the early councils. The scribes, under the directive to consolidate monolithic power, faced a dilemma: how to preserve reverence for the divine source without empowering the individual to the point of total independence. The solution was both brilliant and disastrous. Maintain the form of the prayer, but empty it of its explosive content. The oldest versions, traced back to certain pre-Christian Aramaic dialects, contain not the petition for daily sustenance, but the affirmation of the capacity to manifest continuous wealth. The original emphasis was not on bread, the finished, limited product, but on seed, the idea, the opportunity, the energetic alignment with the productive flow. When translated into Koine Greek and then into Latin, the vibration of the word, meaning illumination of the idea or alignment with the source of provision, was conveniently simplified to artos, bread, thus domesticating the concept of total manifestation to a mere biological necessity. This subtle linguistic shift acted as a cosmic switch, deactivating the masses' ability to claim their right to boundless abundance. The ancestral mentors knew that prayer is, in essence, an algorithm, and by changing a single command from abundance to subsistence, they irreversibly altered the final outcome in the collective consciousness. The distinction between the forbidden and the known version becomes clearer when we analyze the inner workings of the petition. Prayer, as taught today, places the supplicant in a state of perpetual need, compelling them to act from desperation or lack. When we say, "Give us this day our daily bread," we are reinforcing the underlying belief that supply is limited, that it must be bestowed by an external source that can withhold it, and that provision is only sufficient for the present day. This survival for the day mindset is the poison that prevents wealth accumulation and long-term visionary planning, keeping the individual in constant reactivity to scarcity. The ancestral version, however, was a declaration of alignment. It did not ask for bread. It affirmed the connection to the source from which all matter and energy emanate, declaring, "Manifest to me today the wealth of idea and opportunity." Just as you, source, manifest ceaseless creation. The essence was the recovery of identity as a co-creator, not as a beggar. This shift is the chasm between the spirituality of submission and the metaphysics of mastery. The Forbidden Lord's Prayer reminds us that the kingdom is not outside, but within, and that the most powerful tool for attracting abundance is the certainty of deserving, a certainty that the manipulated version has diligently worked to erode and replace with the anxiety of, "What will we eat tomorrow?" But perhaps the most corrosive and psychologically limiting alteration of the prayer lies in the clause concerning the forgiveness of debts. The canonical version reads, "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." This phrase has embedded in the Western psyche a mechanism of perpetual guilt and a transactional spirituality. First, it establishes that we are constantly at fault, that we are indebted to the source of creation, and that our prosperity is contingent upon constant moral judgment based on our past mistakes. This generates a cycle of self-sabotage, where the belief in deservingness is stifled by a sense of unworthiness. Second, it ties our own forgiveness to the forgiveness of others, which, while it sounds noble, in practice anchors our energy to resentment and judgment of others, preventing the vibrational release necessary to attract abundance. The forbidden version, based on a deeper understanding of karmic and energetic law, did not focus on guilt or the moral forgiveness of debts, a financial and legal concept, but on liberation from the bonds or expectations that limit us It declared liberation from all attachment to past or future outcomes and affirmed the state of being flawless and complete in the present. Textual manipulation transformed a mantra of energetic liberation, "Free me from all bonds of lack," into an instrument of moral control. "I am guilty and must await forgiveness, which I must earn by forgiving others," ensuring that human consciousness remained enslaved by the fear of judgment and lack. The revelation of this ancient Lord's Prayer is not an exercise in textual archaeology, but an act of energetic reactivation. True prayer is a vibrational code that, when articulated with the right intention and without the filters of guilt and scarcity, aligns the human mind with the frequency of the universe's ceaseless abundance. The ancient language, particularly Aramaic, was understood not only as a means of communication, but as a conduit of creation, where the word itself possessed the power to materialize intention. By reciting the forbidden version, we are rewriting the central narrative of our relationship with universal provision. We are withdrawing the decree that we are limited, that we must beg, and that we are indebted. We are installing instead the awareness that we are direct conduits of source energy, and that abundance flows to us as naturally as blood flows through our veins. This prayer is the most direct tool for eliminating the unconscious self-sabotage that has been programmed through centuries of teaching scarcity. The difference between praying from supplication and praying from authority is the difference between poverty and mastery. And it is precisely this fundamental distinction that leads us to the second and crucial revelation of our path, the vast difference between supplication and decree. We have learned to beg for divine favor. Now we must learn to claim our inheritance with the unwavering conviction of a king who dictates his will. The most nefarious and calculated alteration of the prayer is embedded in the line dealing with the forgiveness of debts. In the version you have been taught, a spiritual barter economy is established. If you forgive, you will be forgiven. If you hold a grudge, you will be punished and limited in your provision. This programmed humanity to operate from guilt and fear of divine retribution, keeping the individual in a state of perpetual moral beggary and material scarcity. You were forced to believe that your well-being was conditional, dependent on an external judgment of your morality and not on your inherent connection to the source. However, the Aramaic texts that resonate with profound Christic teaching, those very texts that were labeled apocryphal or heretical by the Synod of Nicaea, reveal that the original word used did not refer to financial obligation or moral sin, but rather to self-imposed limitations or misaligned energetic bonds, hoba. The revelation is that the forbidden version doesn't ask God to forgive us for our sins, but rather declares our own authority to release the limiting patterns we have created and sustained. It is a decree of personal and financial emancipation. The power structure understood that if humanity stopped seeing itself as indebted, the system of control based on priestly mediation, the promise of absolution, and the accumulation of tithes would completely collapse. It was vital to keep humanity enslaved to the idea that provision and forgiveness resided outside of themselves. Therefore, prayer was transformed from a manifesto of inner sovereignty and declared abundance into a cry of external dependence and justified scarcity. This subtle shift was the most effective mind control weapon ever devised. We are here to restore the original intention and remove the decree of lack that has been etched into humanity's spiritual code. To understand the co-creative capacity inherent in the forbidden version, we must journey to its linguistic root, unearthing the latent power in the Aramaic verbs that were deliberately softened in the Greek and Latin translations. The mystics of that era understood that the resonance of Aramaic, the language of Yeshua, was not merely descriptive, but formative, a language of fire that possessed the power to reorganize matter through precise vocalization. The phrase we normally translate as "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven," is, in its original energetic matrix, a powerful formula for manifestation known to the Essenes. It is not a plea for an external entity to act in the future, but a present-tense declaration that the speaker is activating the bridge between the higher dimension, heaven, the inexhaustible source of abundance and perfect order, and immediate earthly manifestation. It is about invoking the frequency of the source to saturate the speaker's physical reality, immediately manifesting the abundance of the ideal plane into the material plane. The concept of will is not passive resignation to fate or poverty, but active alignment with the infinite flow of provision that is already available. Gnostic texts, particularly those discovered at Nag Hammadi that challenge the doctrine of guilt, repeatedly allude to the fact that the kingdom is within you and that knowledge, gnosis of this truth, makes you sovereign. This forbidden version of the Lord's Prayer acts as the master key that unlocks that inner kingdom, allowing the intrinsic wealth of being to flow into material existence without resistance or mediation. The co-creation of abundance, therefore, is not a gift to be asked for, but a universal law activated by the word spoken with authority. The suppression of this ancient truth was not a theological accident, but a deliberate geopolitical and economic strategy designed to consolidate wealth and social control. The moment the Roman Empire adopted Christianity, it became imperative to remove any teachings that empowered individuals to operate outside the emerging hierarchical structure. The forbidden Lord's Prayer promised direct access to universal provisioning. If the masses could co-create their own abundance, if they could release their own energy debts without the intervention of a priest or the purchase of indulgences, the economic and moral foundation of the nascent church would instantly collapse. Power thrives on the need for mediation. We must remember the historical context. Control of land, the justification of poverty as a spiritual virtue, and the obligation of tithing were irreplaceable pillars of this new imperial religious structure. The teachings now attributed to forbidden texts, such as certain Essene scrolls that describe the direct connection between conscious prayer and material abundance, contained the key to material mastery. These documents were not only condemned, but physically destroyed in great purges, such as those ordered in the 4th century, precisely because they taught that divinity, and by extension wealth, resided within and were accessible without an earthly intermediary. Mass poverty became proof of spiritual failure and a sign of required humility, while ecclesiastical wealth became the visible proof of divine favor. The manipulated version of prayer became the primary liturgical weapon for perpetuating this deception, ensuring that the only legitimate source of blessing and provision appeared to emanate from the hands of the institution and not from the innate creative power of the sovereign individual. The true inner alchemy that the ancestral version of prayer ignites lies in the profound transformation of our spiritual identity. For entire cycles of history, we have been taught to adopt the posture of the cosmic beggar, kneeling, head bowed, body hunched over, pleading for crumbs of mercy and material provision. This state of mind of insufficiency, seared into the collective unconscious through ritual repetition, is the root of all lack and stagnation. By activating the forbidden prayer, we not only change the words, but we reconfigure the architecture of our self-image and our relationship with provision. We are discarding the role of the needy victim and assuming the unconditional authority of the conscious co-creator. This is the quantum leap of consciousness that will be required of you on this path, moving from asking for permission to declaring your truth. The profound reflection that now demands it is unavoidable. Am I willing to let go of the apparent comfort of submission and the excuse to embrace full responsibility for my own manifestation and well-being? The manipulated version perpetuated the belief that we were inherently unworthy of divine wealth. The restored version compels us to recognize our inherent divinity and therefore, our infinite capacity to attract and sustain abundance in all its forms. This reprogramming of the core belief system, this act of sovereignty that uproots the scarcity programming, is the essence of the alchemy moment. When we recite this prayer with full conviction, we are not merely praying for temporary bread, but we are being the inexhaustible source of bread, becoming the energetic magnet that effortlessly attracts what is ours by divine right. We have dismantled the debt trap and restored the mandate of co-creation. We have identified how earthly power manipulated language to impose lack. But we still have to unveil the most powerful and most rigorously guarded component of the Forbidden Lord's Prayer, the hidden vibration in the original use of the divine name. The standard translation reads, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." But this line, in the ancient Aramaic used by the initiates, encodes a specific and profoundly esoteric sound technology. The masters of Gnosis understood that the name invoked was not a static noun for a distant being, but an active mantra, a phonetic key capable of reorganizing surrounding matter and accelerating manifestation. The power structure knew that if the masses gained access to the true pronunciation and vibrational intent of this name, which is a frequency of instant manifestation, an invocation that compels materialization, control over collective reality, and the cycles of wealth would be irrevocably lost. Therefore, the name was replaced or diluted in generic translations, stripping it of its creative resonance. Abundance is not only co-created with the right intention, but with the right frequency. What has been denied us is not just a phrase, but a tone of authority. The ultimate secret of this prayer is not read, but felt in the resonance of the word that was erased from time. Now that we understand the intention behind the suppression, we are ready to attempt the forbidden pronunciation, the one that unlocks the doors to unlimited supply and bestows upon us the scepter of material mastery. We have journeyed through centuries of textual and doctrinal deception. The truth about our direct capacity for manifestation has been revealed, stripping it of its chains of guilt and lack. Take a moment to feel the weight of this liberation. What scarcity or lack programming, which you believed to be your own and inevitable, do you now recognize as an external imposition designed to limit you? Take a deep breath and let the air expel the residual guilt of the debt you never had to pay. The sovereignty of your spirit is being restored. Do you feel the immanent authority vibrating in your chest as you know your provision is limitless? The distinction between supplication and decree is not merely semantic or stylistic. It is a fundamental division of quantum reality and the sovereignty of being. When the voice rises in supplication, laden with the weight of despair, lack, and unworthiness, what is projected is not a request, but a vibrational confirmation of separation. We are, in that act, energetically declaring, "I am small, you are great. I lack, you possess. I am unworthy, you are the judge." This frequency of begging creates a resonant field that immediately repels the manifestation of abundance, since abundance operates from the principle of completeness, not lack. It is a hermetic law. The energy you send out must be the same energy you wish to receive. Supplication, by its very nature, is an admission of personal nothingness before an external deity perceived as the only legitimate source of provision. The hidden texts of the ancient Solar Brotherhood explain that this stance was cleverly instilled in the masses to ensure their spiritual and material dependence. The spiritual beggar never questions the priest or the king, because he believes both are indispensable intermediaries of a grace inherently denied him. The decree, on the other hand, arises from the immutable certainty that the individual is not only connected to the source, but is the source itself manifesting in this dimension. To decree is to activate the divine inheritance, to wield the scepter of co-creation with the authority conferred upon us at the moment of our stellar genesis. We do not ask. We affirm the reality already encoded in our luminous DNA, compelling the cosmos to align with the intrinsic truth of being, transcending the paradigm of lack to establish the dominion of certainty. Ancient wisdom, stripped of the layers of imposed doctrine, has always recognized the inherent authority of humankind as co-creators. In Hermetic and Gnostic traditions, the original prayer was not a lament, but a ritualized acknowledgement of status. The act of supplication was a social and spiritual implant. Consider the symbolism of posture. Kneeling or prostrating oneself is physical surrender, the annulment of the center of power, the solar plexus and the heart. The ancient priests of Melchizedek, before the great fragmentation, performed their provisioning rites, standing with arms outstretched and palms upward, in a posture that balanced giving and receiving, not in submission, but in sovereign exchange. The key lies in the consciousness of lineage, the prodigal son who returns home and does not borrow, but claims his share. The difference is encapsulated in the use of the pronoun. The supplication focuses on the distant you, God, universe, destiny, as the sole active force and the repository of all power. The decree centers on the I am as the master key, the point of intersection where the divine and the material meet and merge without hierarchy of value. When you say, I am abundant, or I am perfect health, you are not expressing a wish or a hope. You are declaring an ontological truth that compels matter to realign itself to that frequency. This principle of authority was the cornerstone of the priests who knew the unpronounceable name. They did not pray to the deity. They invoked the frequency of the deity that already resided within them to produce the desired effect and manifest reality without friction. The people, on the other hand, only learned to beg favors from a remote god, thus losing the direct connection and inherent authority with the source of provision. The forbidden teachings, often labeled Gnostic or heretical by the controlling structures, reveal that the strictest universal law is the law of vibrational correspondence. The universe, and what some call the source, does not hear the words of supplication. It reads the underlying energetic signature you emit with every thought and emotion. The Aramaic text of the A Book of Secret Mirrors, preserved only in fragments in Coptic libraries and subject to early rabbinic censorship for its dangerous autonomy, establishes a stern principle. He who prostrates himself and groans in want will be given as his inheritance, for he has declared want to be his natural state and his unalterable truth. This forbidden text details that the beggar's reward is an empty basket, not because of divine cruelty, but because of perfect cosmic honesty. If your vibration affirms lack, the universe will provide you with more experiences of lack so that your reality perfectly corresponds to your inner belief. The decree, however, is the emission of a frequency of possession and absolute certainty. It is a self-evident truth that prevails over doubt. The great alchemist understood that the transmutation of scarcity into opulence was not achieved by imploring the heavens, but by changing the internal belief matrix from want to have, from hope to is. A decree, when pronounced with the unwavering certainty of authority, becomes a resonant command that reorganizes the subatomic particles of its environment. There is no room for doubt, because doubt is supplication in disguise. The simple act of asking forgiveness for being undeserving of abundance, a common practice in institutionalized supplication, is the quickest and most effective way to sabotage your own ability to manifest and declare your unworthiness before your own creative spirit. Remember, you are not asking for something from a celestial bank. You are managing the resources that already belong to you by right of stellar birth. The inner alchemy this transition demands is the most challenging of all, dismantling the ingrained habit of lack. For eons, We were taught that humility is measured by self-deprecation and that merit must be earned through suffering or grueling struggle. This is the great lie we must incinerate in the fire of sovereign truth. True decree arises from a higher humility, one that recognizes you are a flawless channel of source, and that limiting the supply flowing through you is not humility, but a form of cosmic arrogance that denies the perfection of creation. Transformation requires rigorous self-examination to identify where you still operate from a beggar's mindset. Do you seek external validation for your gifts? Do you feel guilt when you receive seemingly effortlessly? These are the lingering echoes of supplication that still dwell in your shadow, waiting to sabotage your light. The process of change is simple, but it requires ironclad mental discipline. Every time need pushes you to a prayer of, "Please give me," or "If it is your will," take a deep pause, breathe, and reframe that energy into a declaration of "I am," or "I decree that it be." Transform desperation into conscious sovereignty. This act is not merely an intellectual exercise or superficial positive thinking. It is a vibrational realignment of the heart center, where your soul's authority resides. It is the realization that provision is not out there, waiting to be bestowed by a distant being, but is the very omnipresent structure of your existence. By decreeing, you are not asking for a check. You are reclaiming full control over the universal bank account that has always been in your name and whose balance is infinite. Understanding that you are a sovereign decreer, not a dependent supplicant, is the first great step toward material mastery and mindfulness. However, mere vocalized intention or naive faith are not enough for consistent manifestation and the creation of lasting realities. The ancient sages knew that even the most powerful decree must be structured and channeled through a specific technology for its resonance to be unwavering and instantaneous. Think of a decree like electricity. It has inherent power, but it needs wires and transformers to effectively and safely illuminate an entire city. This lost technology is language engineering, which uses the sacred geometry of sound and perfect syntax to create a force field of manifestation that allows no energy leaks, doubt, or subconscious sabotage. It is not just what you say, but how the energetic mandate is woven into the fabric of time and space, so that the universe receives an unambiguous command. There is a secret architecture behind the most powerful decrees, a structure that resembles the composition of a diamond, perfect, refractory, permanent, and impossible to distort by external forces or internal fears. This architecture employs what the texts of Thoth call the 3 keys of confirmation: flawless tonal resonance, a time vector fixed in the perpetual present, and the unshakable conjunction of the I am as the source of origin. The next level of our revelation will delve precisely into this engineering. Is your consciousness ready to stop casting words to the wind and, instead, begin to forge immovable energetic structures that guarantee the materialization of your material and spiritual sovereignty? The technique of the unshakable decree is what separates the mere dreamer from the conscious architect of reality. We have passed through the veil together, understanding that sovereignty is not won, but remembered. Reality is not an immutable fact, but the expanded reflection of the linguistic architecture you have constructed. You now possess the master keys not only to dream, but to shape manifestation with the precision of a cosmic geometer. Remember this fundamental truth. The physical world is always the delayed reverberation of your impeccably structured inner command. Confusion has been dispelled. The technique of unwavering decree separates the mere dreamer from the conscious architect of reality. You have been reintroduced to the language of origin. Having received this light, and with the perfect architecture in your hands, what will be the first unbreakable decree you will forge to cement the manifestation of your destiny? Leave your answer below and begin to etch that intention into the collective ether. Wisdom, to be real, must flow. If this revelation has illuminated your path and granted you the tools of your own sovereignty, fulfill the act of cosmic service. Share this knowledge now. By doing so, you not only spread light, but you activate the flow of abundance and affirmation in your own timeline. To ensure your ascent is uninterrupted and that you never lose the thread of these forbidden truths, you must subscribe now and activate the sacred notification bell. This is the signal that assures us you will be called when the next portal of knowledge opens. The portal of knowledge never closes for the genuine seeker. Your next step is crucial. Click now on the adjacent video. The next link in this chain of truth, the profound, practical application of this energy engineering awaits you. The holographic projection of manifestation. The ascension continues.